So if you're in this scenario where you've been scripting for a while now and you really want to take your Python scripting to the next level and you don't know where to start, well, I think one of the first things that you can do is start using an IDE. You know, the Maya script editor is great and I love it for what it is. But when you want to start writing bigger and more complex code and there's a lot more moving parts to your code, that's when you really need to start considering swapping over using an IDE. So what the hell is an IDE? Well, it's basically a decked out editor. So you've got a lot of things like different features. You've got autocomplete. You've got, ways to track your code. So you can, if you use a function, you can jump to where the function is defined. And it's really great for managing just large code bases and kind of moving away from like these tiny little atomic scripts that you would write inside of the script editor. And my personal preference, I mean, there's a lot out there, but my personal preference is PyCharm by JetBrains. And, there's a lot of other IDEs out there, and I recommend you guys take a look at some of the options because some might be more suited to you. You might like the interface more. There could be a host of different reasons why you choose an IDE, but I kind of want to go over PyCharm because it's the one that I personally use and that I know, and one that I think is really good, not just for scripting for Maya, but just Python in general. It's a great IDE. I mean, really anything from JetBrains, from what I'm told, is pretty solid, so you can't go wrong. And the bonus is that it's free, so anything that's free is definitely worth a check. Okay, so we've got this website here. If you just Google PyCharm, you can find your way to this website. It's not that hard, and you can just come to download, and then there's a bunch of different platforms you can select, and you can get like the community version, which is free. So if you want to just try it out, definitely recommend just trying out the community version first. The professional version is really more for like if you want to get like pretty general with your Python, and it does a lot of other stuff outside of Python, like web development and HTML and JavaScript and all that sort of stuff. You don't really need to go professional unless you need those kind of features. Community version is more than enough, and that's what I use. And something else you want to download is if you come and you search the Maya Developer Center, you'll come to this website here, this web page. If you just scroll down, you can come down to this section here where it's the Maya 2020 Dev Kit or the 2019, whichever version of Maya that you're on. You just want to download the dev kit that matches your Maya version. So here I would be using the Maya 2020 Update 3 dev kit because that's the version that I'll be on. So just go ahead and click that and it'll launch a download for you, and you can just save it wherever. So before we get into PyCharm, once you've downloaded the dev kit from the Autodesk website, what you want to do is extract it. I've already extracted it here. And once you've extracted it, we just want to cut this folder, and I'm going to come over to a folder and create my own little project. So you can create your project folder in any location that Maya can access. I'm just creating it somewhere in my C drive. It doesn't really matter where you create it. It's totally up to you. So I want to just come here and create a new folder. I'm going to call this Payathon. Payathon like that. And inside of Payathon, I'm going to create a new folder and call this lib for libraries, I guess. Inside lib, I'm going to paste my dev kit. And you don't have to set it up exactly this way, but this is just how I'm going to organize this. And then in this Payathon folder, next to this lib folder, I'm just going to create another folder and call this Python, for lack of a better word. So now we've kind of created the initial project structure for our little project that we can use inside of PyCharm, we're ready to go into PyCharm. When you start PyCharm for the first time after installing it, you'll get this little dialog here. And from here, you can just select the theme that you like. There's a light theme, there's a dark theme. I'm going to go with this, hit next. Now it's going to show you a bunch of plugins that you can install, and you can install more if you needed to, but I'm going to skip this step because I don't really need to install any of these. So I'm going to skip remaining and set to defaults. Then it's going to launch PyCharm. And from here, you can create a new project or open one. We're going to just create one because we haven't got any projects yet. So now it's going to ask you for the location of your project. So I'm going to browse for the folder that we created, this Payathon folder. And then within there, I've created that Python folder. If you remember, I'll just hit OK onto that Python folder. Now we've set our location. Next thing we need to do is set up our Python interpreter. So what does that mean? Why do we need to set up our Python interpreter? Well, there's a lot of different versions of Python, and the version of Python that we need to use needs to correspond to the version of Python that Maya is using. So they need to match. And the easiest way to do that is just to specify the interpreter that Maya is actually using. So what we can do is select existing interpreter here. It might be set to here by default. Just set it to existing. Come to the three dots, and then on the virtual environment, we want to just come to the three dots here again. And now you want to browse to the directory where you've installed Maya. So if you're in Windows, you'll likely be under Program Files, Autodesk, and then the version of Maya that you're using. So I'm going to use the Maya 2020 version here. And then underneath there, you want to come to this bin folder. So once you open up this bin folder, you see a lot of files in there. The one we care about is mayapy.exe. So I'm going to just hit enter on that. And then it's going to load in that file path there, and I can hit OK now. So now it's going to set that there. And the last thing is it's going to try to create a Python file by default, a welcome script. And I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to uncheck that. And now I can hit create, and that will basically set up our project and set up the file path. So it starts off using that project, and then this is PyCharm. This is the UI for PyCharm. So there's a couple of things that I normally like to do when I code. I'm just going to show you guys how I do it. So I'm going to under here, there's this structure tab, and when you click on the structure tab, it'll open this panel. So what I like to do is I actually like to drag this guy over to the right side so that when I'm scripting, I can get an overview of my code. So you'll see in a minute when I start scripting what happens with this structure panel over here. It'll display things like your functions and some variables and classes and things like that. It's a really nice way to get an overview of your code. So that's why I like to put it over on the right there. And on the left here is basically your project structure. So where all your files live. And of course, we don't have any files at the moment, so it's just empty. But you can see we have a bunch of libraries that have loaded. And these libraries just come with this mayapy.exe interpreter. It's automatically found a bunch of libraries that relate to Python and relate to Maya. But before we start scripting, there's one more thing I want to do, and that's to come up to File, come over to Settings, and then you want to find your project, your little project menu here. And inside that menu, if you open it up, there's a Python interpreter. And you want to get that, and we just need to make a small addition to this Python interpreter. So you can see here it's loaded our Maya Python interpreter. What I can do is if I come to this icon, this gear icon, I want to show all, and I want to select this guy. There should only be one unless you've already set up PyCharm. But the one you want is, obviously the mayapy.exe. You can click on this little paths icon. And this will show you all the different interpreter paths that are related to this interpreter. So you can see there's already a bunch of stuff here. What we want to do is we want to just add one ourselves. And the one we want to add is the one that lives under that project that we've created, where our lib folder is and where our dev kit is, where we've pasted our dev kit folder. We just need to come inside here to this dev kit folder, inside that dev kit base folder, and then you want to come down to bin. Oh no, it was other. You want to come down to other, PyMail, extras, completion, and Py. Now that was a lot of stuff there, so I'm going to put it on screen exactly where you need to go. But yeah, there was a lot of paths under this dev kit thing there. But yeah, you want to come down to this Py folder. And if you open that, you can see there's a bunch of stuff in there, but we don't want to grab the internal stuff. We just want this top folder, this Py folder. Now you can hit OK, and you can see it's added this little path here. And the last thing you want to do is deactivate this site packages. So you can hit negative, this minus button, and that'll remove it temporarily. And you can also reinstate it by just hitting the negative button again, and that just kind of brings it back. But yeah, if you just hit that negative, that minus button to just remove it temporarily, and then hit OK, and OK here, and OK one last time, and now we're ready to go. Now we're ready to start coding. So what you can do is you can right click on this folder, and we can create a new Python file and just give it a name. I'm just going to say test and hit enter, and it's going to create a new Python file, test.py. So now we've set up PyCharm, so it's ready to roll to start scripting. So I can say import maya.cmds as cmds. And you can see once I type cmds and hit dot, it'll open up a big menu. And inside this menu are all the commands available to you inside of the CMDS module. And that's why it's really nice to start coding inside of an IDE, is to get nice features like this, like auto completion and whatnot. So I can type xform, for example, and you can see it gives me a summary of the xform command. It takes some arguments and some keyword arguments. Of course, you should refer to the documentation if you want to look up the specifics of this command. And I have a small video on how to look at the documentation and look at all the different flags. So be sure to check that out if you don't know how to do that. But yeah, now you can see you get some nice auto completion. So you can do cmds dot, and then you get a bunch of stuff here, and you can get access to all the nice little commands that you can see. And that's one of the beautiful things about PyCharm, is that it gives you auto completion, and it also gives you some highlighting, some syntax highlighting, and it also gives you some nice things like this little structure section over to the right. So if I type a function, so let me just call this function foo just as a test. And now you can see on the right here, it's got this little F icon, and it's got foo, the name foo. So I know there's a function named foo. And if I create a bunch here, def bar, just say pass for now, you can see we've got another function there. And once you start getting into classes, if you create a class, and let's just call this class foo like this, and just pass, you can see now we have a class there. And inside the class, if we have multiple methods, let me just quickly fill this out. And you see there's nice auto completion as well. It automatically auto completed that for me. So, and that's that. And we want to inherit from object. So now you can see we get a class, and there's a bunch of sub methods. And if you click on it, you can see it's opening it up in different files. And that's a little bit advanced, so you don't need to get into that. But it's good to know that you have the ability to inspect your code on a broader scale like this, which is super helpful. Yeah, and the last thing is just how do we access this code back inside of Maya? And I'll show you guys that right now. Let me just fill out this test function that says print. You have successfully run this function. Just so we know when we run this function, it's worked. Maybe we can do something like CMDS. See if we can create a polycube. Let's just create a polycube. Give it the name hello. And we can save this script now. And there's one more thing we need to do inside of PyCharm before I forget is we need to create a proper Python package so that Maya can actually import this into the workspace. So we've got this project here and we've got this standalone script. But what I actually need is also, I need to create a new Python package, and then I can type in the name, maybe something interesting. I'm just going to call this awesome. I mean, you can name it something more relevant to the code that you're creating. I'm going to create this awesome package, and you can see that underneath there, it's automatically created the init.py for us. And that's how Python knows that this is a package. So we can also move this guy into this awesome package, and it's going to try to do some intelligent things when you move files. And that's one of the nice things about PyCharm is it's going to, you can also search for references, like other code that references this test.py file or whichever file you're moving, and it'll automatically update it for you. So I'm just going to hit refactor, and that automatically moves it into this. And if there was any code that references that test.py, it'll automatically update for you, or it'll give you sort of like a warning dialog, and you can go through and update code manually, individually if you wanted to, or you can let PyCharm do it for you. And since nothing's referencing at the moment, we don't really need to go through that process, but it's good to know that PyCharm can actually do that kind of stuff. So let's move on. So there's one last little thing that we need to do before we can import our package into Maya. So we need to actually come into our preferences directory. So you can get to there by going to user directory, your username, and then documents Maya. And this is if you're on Windows. If you're on like another operating system, it's probably different. I'll just link the paths for those other operating systems up on screen. And then where we want to go is inside this scripts directory. So it's just right underneath Maya scripts. What we want to do is just create a new text file. So I'm going to create a new text file, and I'm going to call this user setup. Now it's important that you name it the same as I do, like so, so that Maya can read it. And this is a special file that Maya can read. And I just want to set the extension to .py instead of txt. It's going to ask me if I want to do this. Yes, I do. And now what I want to do is open this in a simple notepad application. I mean, you can open this in PyCharm, but that's a little bit overkill for what we need. And what I want to do now is type import sys, like so, and then sys.path.append, and then open bracket, close bracket, and two quotation marks. And inside the quotation marks, I want to just browse to my my project that I created, this Payathon project. And inside there, I want to just find this Python directory. And I just want to copy this entire path all the way up to Python. I'm going to paste it here, and then I'm just going to save this file. And that's all we need to do for that. And now we can boot up Maya, and let's try to import the code. So now I'm inside Maya here. I want to create a new Python tab in my script editor. And what I can try to do is import awesome, which is the name of our package. If I run this, you can see it's worked. I get no errors, and that's a good sign. So what I actually want to do is inside of our awesome package, I want to import our test.py file. So this is how you do that. And now I can import awesome.test, and that's worked, and that's great. And the last thing I can do is I can just type foo, which is the function that we wrote. So if I run this now, you can see it's printed. You have successfully run this function, as well as create a little cube named hello. So we've successfully created a Python project somewhere on disk. We've been able to reference that Python project using the user setup.py file. And that just gives Maya the ability to read the code. And then as soon as Maya is launched, we can import our package and execute our functions within our Python scripts. So this is a nice way to kind of work, and you can organize your code a little bit more. And yeah, that's pretty much it for setting up PyCharm for Maya. And just, a little bit of an introduction into IDEs. And hopefully I can show you guys some more interesting things in future videos, so make sure you stick around.